Good afternoon. On behalf of CallFinder, I want to welcome you today to Driving Sales with Speech Analytics. Today, you'll learn how cloud-based speech analytics can help your company to adapt to the changing sales environment and drive more sales. So I'd like today to welcome our guest speaker, Shannon Gronemeyer of Customer-Centered Strategies. Shannon Gronemeyer, as president of Customer-Centered Strategies, prior to founding it, Shannon served in a variety of leadership roles in sales operations and customer service organizations, as well as leading corporate transformation, technology deployment, and merger and acquisition integration initiatives. At Customer-Centered Strategies, Shannon and his team are focused on helping their clients to drive improved sales performance through optimization of sales enablement processes and technology. Today's agenda will cover the market dynamics that are influencing the changes in sales operations today. You'll learn how you can leverage speech analytics to analyze your sales conversations and the factors that contribute to your sales effectiveness in order to have easier and more comprehensive reporting. You use the insights you derive to manage script compliance, to enhance your workforce training, and to automate quality monitoring, and to improve your agent's performance and your overall customer experience. So, Shannon, I am going to hand it on over to you.
Thank you, Ann. At Customer-Centered Strategies, we're extremely appreciative of the relationship we have with CallFinder and are grateful for the opportunity to speak to the audience today. And we're also thankful for those of you that took the time out of your very busy day to join us on this webinar and to learn about how speech analytics can help drive sales performance, especially in the inside sales space. But before I begin diving into how to leverage speech analytics to drive sales performance and effectiveness, I just want to take a step back and talk about some of the changes in the industry that we believe are driving the importance of inside sales as a revenue generation source for most companies, and the movements that we're seeing and shifting to an inside sales model. And then finally, why that inside sales movement and migration increases the importance of leveraging tools like speech analytics. So on this slide, you can see that a recent Accenture study found that 73% of business executives said consumer behavior has changed dramatically over the last 3 years. And further, 74% of them didn't really understand completely what those changes were and what they represented. And a full 80% said they didn't believe their companies are really taking advantages of the changes that were taking place. And so this really speaks to the dramatic amount of changes that is occurring and how rapidly it's occurring, making it very difficult for companies to keep up on a technical standpoint and engaging with clients and customers the way they want to be engaged with. This same study tried to categorize some of the changes that they were seeing in the marketplace. They described it as networked, so today's consumers are more networked, they're more connected online, they're leveraging social media, and they like to be co-productive and collaborate with other resources. But at the same time, they're also very independent. On an individual basis, they're very experiential, they're resourceful, and outside of technology, they're actually less connected. And they're becoming much more cooperative, more communal, more conscientious of the environments and the needs of others, and also a movement towards a minimalist experience of making life a little bit simpler for them. So you can see fairly dramatic and encompassing changes across the consumer landscape. And so let's talk about how those differences manifest themselves and kind of what some of those key differences are in consumer behavior. We're really going to talk about 3 primary elements: the level of the control that consumers have over the buying process, the level of knowledge they bring to the buying process, and finally, how they choose to connect and the way they interact with sellers. And in this presentation, we're going to focus mostly on control and knowledge. And on the connection standpoint, even though we acknowledge that consumers want to connect through a variety of means: email, social media, text, chat, and a variety of other forms. We're going to focus on phone and how the consumers are likely to actually increase the amount of time and energy they spend connecting to sellers on the phone, which may seem a little counterintuitive in our digital world. But we think that's going to take place, and we're going to focus on that and the role that speech analytics can play there. So in terms of control, consumers really today want to manage the process from when a seller or product provider engages with them to the point in which they buy. They want to drive that process on their terms and under their time frame. And in many times, they only want to engage at the very end of the process. They want to do all of their homework, understand their options, make their decision, and at that point, engage with the seller. And during that time, they want to remain anonymous. And it's probably, we believe, both of those are a little bit a result of the lack of trust that consumers have in sellers today. They're leveraging independent and social feedback much more extensively because they simply don't trust the selling propositions and the statements of the seller. So it might be that lack of trust that's driving the need for additional control, but certainly across the different market industries and segments, we're seeing consumers and buyers wanting a greater degree of control over how they engage and how they buy. Consumers are also incredibly more informed. They have access to a massive amount of online research and data and reviews and feedback. So they're incredibly informed about the products that you're offering, the price points you're selling them at, what your competitors are offering and what their price points are. This also makes them much more cost conscious. So since they understand your price point, the values they're getting for that price point, and they understand your competitors, they can make decisions more effectively about what features, functions are important to them and what they're willing to pay for it. So they're very cost conscious in understanding what the right value is for the money. And because of all of the sellers trying to keep up with these dramatically changing consumer requirements and all of the new tools and technology that's out there, the buyers and consumers have gotten much more sophisticated and demanding. They expect the technological capabilities they see in various industries to be replicated wherever they buy. So they look for multi-channel experiences. They want to be able to engage, as I said before, how they want to engage and when they want to engage. And not only that, not only do they want to engage through a variety of mediums with you, they want you to know that they've done that, and they want you to know who they are. All the while, they want to remain anonymous. So very tricky for us as business leaders to keep up with that demand. And so we believe that this is in fact, these changes are driving an increased importance in inside sales. One of those reasons is because of cost. So as you can imagine, trying to keep up with these changing requirements and buying patterns and engagement points with consumers can be expensive, especially at the rate at which those changes are occurring. So inside sales is a great way to reduce the cost of engaging with your clients from a sales perspective. One of the studies we read showed that you can reduce the cost of sales by 40 to 90% using an inside sales organization versus an outside sales organization. Another reason inside sales becomes more important is because the consumers have decided they're going to wait until they're ready to buy, and then they're going to reach out to you. And so when consumers are ready to purchase, they'll contact you again through a variety of ways. And contacting you via phone to your inside sales organization is going to be one of those ways that they reach out and engage with you. And we particularly think that phone will be more prevalent in industries that maybe the sales process or the product is a little more complex. They're looking for some type of relationship to be developed with the provider. Maybe there's a long-term relationship that exists through multi-year contracts and they want to get to know or feel as if they know the seller. Or maybe there's a post-sale service component and they want to be able to trust the provider is going to be there for them. So phone is the best way for them to achieve those kind of emotional connection points versus some of the electronic media that's out there. So that's another reason we think that inside sales is going to become more prevalent. And finally, customers are just very comfortable with this remote style of engagement model, phone again being one of those. So the days of the past when a salesperson met with a client face-to-face, explained the value proposition to them, explained why the product was valuable to them and what they would get out of it, and why to select their particular product, those days are gone. The consumers can find all of that on their own at their own time and their own way, and they can choose when to engage. So when they reach out, they'll be reaching out via a phone to inside sales organizations that will have the opportunity to convert that customer at that time. And we are seeing this migration manifest itself in the workplace. A recent Harvard Business Review study showed that 46% of the people surveyed reported a shift from a field sales model to an inside sales model. So over half of the company leaders they surveyed are suggesting that they are making that migration. And another graph that was in that report showed the number of companies that are driving more than 90% of the revenues from from field sales is decreasing. So more and more companies are gaining a larger portion of their revenue through inside sales. You can see in software, almost all companies are driving less than 90% of the revenue from field sales, the rest coming from inside sales. In hardware, cloud, and telecom, half the companies reported that they are delivering more than 90% of their sales through field sales. So we're seeing this shift happen as companies are moving from the more expensive, in some cases out-of-date model of field-based, face-to-face, outside selling to an inside sales model that can support a higher number of engagements, a higher number of calls, interactions with customers across a larger number of customers. And the interaction point when those consumers do decide to call into the sales organization is going to be different than it has been in the past. As I said before, they're going to initiate that buying cycle on their terms and on their time. So they expect the provider, the seller, to be available when they're ready to purchase. And they're going to expect more than us just to give them a price and a quote and describe the features, because they already have that information. They can already do all of that research and reach their own conclusions about your product before they've ever contacted you. So as I said before, they're likely going to be reaching out via phone as opposed to other mediums for some kind of emotional connection to gain confidence in you as a provider, or just be assured that they're going to get the level of support that they're looking for in the future. But also because of this high level of knowledge they have, they're going to be much less forgiving of poor inside sales skills and capabilities. They are going to understand your product and your price. They're going to understand your competitors. They're going to understand the value that your product offers. And so when they connect with someone on the phone, they're going to expect that person to know as much as they do, if not more. It's a pretty bad experience when you call into an inside sales organization and you know more about their product than they do. So that's just not going to be acceptable for consumers going forward. In an Amex study we found, it showed that over half of the people they surveyed intended to make a purchase, but decided not to based on a single bad experience. So think about that. This is an environment where a customer is ready to buy. They've made the decision to buy, and they're calling in to not only place that purchase, but get reinforcement for the decision they made. And in fact, because of that interaction, they decided to go elsewhere. So they really have an increased level of expectation for the knowledge your agents have. If they call a couple of times, they're going to expect the same answer, not to be dependent on the agent they're talking to. They want a higher level service. They need you to respond quickly. And there are some relationship and emotional needs they're trying to address when they call into your center. And now this is where a speech analytics tool can be incredibly helpful, because we're talking about very qualitative natures of these conversations that will be critically important to driving consumer purchases and adoption of your product. And most of the reporting and tools that we use today don't measure these qualitative factors. These are relational factors, these perceptions of skill of the agent by the consumer. So this is where we see speech analytics becoming very important. So let's talk a little bit about analytics and reporting used for inside sales organizations. Traditionally, inside sales organizations use a variety of tools to measure the quantitative factors of the interaction. They use things like connection rate, especially for outbound sales organizations. How many consumers are actually connecting with and having dialogue with per the calls that they're making. How many calls are they making per day or per hour? What is the outcome of that call? And many times self-reported. What's the conversion rate, the close rate of those calls, either from a lead into an opportunity or from an opportunity into a sale? And what is the revenue we've driven from that? But all of these are measuring the outcome, which is great. We have to measure the outcome of the activity of the pursuit of customer growth. But none of them measure the qualitative things that lead to those outcomes in the first place. So some of those things are things like objection capture. Do we know the objections that are being raised by clients? Do we know how our agents are reacting and managing those objections? Are we identifying particular statements that our client makes that indicates there's an opportunity for an upsell or cross-sell or repurchase? Do we capture the customer's responses? How are they responding to different statements we make, different objection management techniques we use? How are they responding to those? Are they working or are they not working? Are the level of avoidance to make a decision or declining to make a decision, are those increasing or decreasing, and when does that happen? So these are all things that are very qualitative in nature and difficult to measure through metrics, but something that can be measured through speech analytics. And finally, before I move on to the next slide, there's a lot of self-reporting typically in an inside sales organization. As I mentioned before, sometimes call outcome is self-reported. And speech analytics helps overcome some of the self-reported metrics that are used in inside sales. We're taking very qualitative data, unstructured audio data, and converting it into qualitative data that we can measure against baselines. And we'll talk a little more about that as we move on. So another study that we want to reference is a study that was done by the Aberdeen Group. And as we talk about the uses of speech analytics, we're going to talk about the ability to use speech analytics to identify revenue opportunities, identify risk in customer relationships, identify the performance of our agents in managing certain statements, objections, et cetera, from our customers. But one of the ways is to drive employee performance. So if we've given them particular scripts, if we've given them methods for managing an objection from a client, if we've given them certain branding statements we want them to make, and the way that our consumers are responding to those conversations can be measured through speech analytics. And so when companies were asked why they were adopting speech analytics in the first place, 29% of them said to drive employee performance. And so we've just described a variety of ways that speech analytics can be used to measure the performance of your inside sales agents. But really all of these reasons for selecting speech analytics can really impact the sales process. So 48% said they're looking for insight into the customer experience. And here they said product or service, but customer experience also exists with the agent themselves. So we can measure what is the customer's experience with that particular agent. And obviously poor experiences will not drive sales success. 25% said they're looking to monitor customer responses to competition and services. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but capturing who your competitors are based on what's referenced on the calls with your clients is incredibly powerful. And then finally, 21% said they're looking to monitor their customer experience, such as on-hold, transfers, and other interaction processes. So again, with those heightened expectations of consumers and the level of service they're expecting, we can use speech analytics to determine if we're effectively managing those calls in a very tactical way. And so speech analytics addresses all of these things, and all of them have an impact on the success of your inside sales organization. So pulling it all together, speech analytics, again, as I said before, is the ability to take this very traditionally unorganized, unformatted, unstructured audio data of thousands of calls that are occurring across your call center all of the time, and convert those into files that we can use in a very quantitative way. We can now create metrics on when certain phrases are said and how often they're said, and how the call is affected by the mention of certain phrases by our clients or by our agents. So we can now organize this data and put metrics and dashboards in place around information that only would have been captured in the past by sitting down with agents and listening in. And you know, the obvious problems of doing that is the time it takes to get that done, 2, making sure you're getting a representative sample, and 3, capturing the data in a methodical and systematic way. And that's exactly what speech analytics does. So it brings all this data together and allows you to put it into dashboards, scorecards, reports, things that you can use to actively manage the performance of the organization on an ongoing basis with a source of information that, quite frankly, we hadn't used very effectively in the past. And then finally, we can take this information to evaluate and coach and train our employees. So we can learn that, are they complying to the objection handling techniques that we've provided them? Are they using those? And when they're using those, are they getting positive or negative agent response? We can use it to determine, are they picking up on key phrases that their clients are saying that would drive a cross-sale, up-sale opportunity. But also, we can leverage the findings from speech analytics to further refine what we're looking for measuring in the first place. You know, we may think that when a client says this, that's going to drive the opportunity for sale. We may discover we were wrong about that. And so by looking at when those phrases are said, how they're handled, and what the outcome of the call is, we may determine there are other things that are more critical for us to look for. So it can allow us to consistently and constantly refine our approach to managing those calls. So diving into reporting a little deeper, it's important to talk about a few examples of specifically how you would use speech analytics in the inside sales call center. One way that I think is really powerful is objection management. So we want to look for the frequency of particular objections. There are common objections used in all sales cycles, and you can probably identify very common objections inside of your own business. Price is always one of those. We've used that as an example here. But when a client says it's way too expensive, your competitor was cheaper, I can't afford it, all those kind of phrases we can identify up front that our client is likely to say when they have a cost objection. And we can track how frequently that objection is. You know, many times we ask the sales organization why we're not winning, and we'll get an answer, but that answer is anecdotal. We can actually measure the number of times that a purported objection is actually being stated by our clients and how important that is and how that frequency compares to other objections. We can also evaluate the use of the objection handling phrases we give in the agent. So when the customer says it's too expensive, has the agent delivered the response to that we've trained them on, that we've decided was best practice? And then if those two things occur, or if they did not, what was the success rate of that call? If the client delivers a particular objection, the agent responds with the phrase we provided them, and we have a very low success rate still, we can determine if something else is driving that, or if that's no longer a critical factor in closing a sale. As I mentioned before, tracking competitors through speech analytics I also think is incredibly powerful. How often is a competitor mentioned? Is the competitor we think that we should be most worried about, is that the one consumers raise up the most in calls with our agents? Is a new competitor presenting itself because of a promotion or discount offer that they have in the marketplace? So we can track who our most significant competitors are as they're mentioned by our customers, and how that changes over time based on different market dynamics. And this allows us to not only think about how we want to specifically respond to each of those competitive mentions, but also how we want to modify our marketing and promotional efforts to specifically target the actions of our competitors. And we can identify success rate by competitor, knowing which ones we have a better opportunity to win against. So a little more on reporting that I think is really powerful here, and that's the ability to correlate what you learn through speech analytics with the successful or unsuccessful outcome of the call. If we understand the sales close rate statistics and we pair those up against certain key phrases and key words, we can start to understand when we win and lose and why we win and lose. So we can leverage this close rate correlation to identify not only what things are commonly said that would drive a sale or not, we can start to identify ideal customer profiles. When customers say certain things, they're much more likely to buy from us than those that don't. And conversely, we can identify customers that say certain things are seldom, if ever, to buy from us. There may be customers out there that simply are not a good fit for our company or for the products we offer. And identifying those right away would allow our inside sales organization to spend less time on those kinds of customers, and focus our energy on more probable outcomes. And enhancing individual performance management across our agent groups, as we discussed before, is powerful with speech analytics. So script compliance. Are they complying to the script that we've provided them? And we'll talk about scripts in just a moment. How often is a customer complaining? We can identify in advance certain keywords and phrases that indicate a customer complaint, a dissatisfaction with the call. Are we seeing that more often with some agents than with others? That's an individual performance management. Objection frequency and handling. Are some agents getting more objections than others? And are they handling those objections better or worse than other agents? And does the customer decide or avoid making a decision or delay a decision more often with some agents than with others? So these are all things that can be measured through speech analytics and related back to the individual agent to manage the performance of your agents. And I want to talk about scripts just for a moment because I'm sure it raised a few eyebrows when I mentioned it earlier. Scripts can be a very controversial topic in the sales world. There are some that believe that scripts reduce the emotional and relational connection with our customers and should be avoided at all costs. But I think there is a place for scripts, and especially in the inside sales world, and I'll explain why. In the inside sales world, there's typically a large number of agents you're managing, and that large number of agents is talking to an ever-increasing number of customers with an ever-increasing number of interactions across the entire enterprise. And so getting your arms around successful performance and implementation of best practice as the leader is incredibly hard. So scripts can be super valuable in driving the right kind of behaviors and performance inside your organization. One thing that can be replicated. So as you're adding and changing agents in your organization and trying to leverage the learnings of one with another, we can define scripts that can be used by all of our agents. They can create some predictability and consistency in how the call is engaged and how the interaction is conducted with the agent. So our agents are leveraging a similar branding and style and messaging to our clients. They can help the agent stay focused and on track. They tend to get surprised less, stumble less, and caught off guard less. With the right script, we can create the right initial attitude with our customers, the right kind of impression with them. If we want the call to be carried out in a particular style or way, a good script can help get the call off to the right start. They can reduce errors and increase rep and customer confidence. They increase rep confidence by helping them know in advance what things they're going to say and in what circumstances. And because the reps seem so smooth in their responses, it also increases customer satisfaction and confidence. And scripts should allow the ability to improvise and to collaborate. This is a really important point, and I think we'll all appreciate this. Almost 70% of people surveyed said that their experience is much better if it doesn't sound like the rep is talking from a script. So while we need to provide scripts and guidelines, we need to do that in a way that allows the agent to adjust and bring their own style and tone to the conversation. So how do we measure call script compliance? One is greeting and branding. Are they using the right greeting? Are they referencing our brand and describing our brand the way we've asked them to? Are they identifying needs of our clients? Are they using questions that we've given them to qualify and determine what the client needs from them? Are they offering the package, the product, in the way that we've designed it to be most effective in the marketplace? As we've said many times, are they handling the objections the way we'd like them to handle them? And we've identified these most powerful responses to objections. Are they using those? Are they actually closing the deal? Are they setting appointments? Are they asking for an order? Are they leveraging closing techniques you provided? Or referrals? Are they asking for references to other clients, other possible consumers? So here's an example of how we take all of this unstructured qualitative data and have now converted it into dashboards that we can very clearly measure and hold our agents and employees accountable for. So we could identify things like in a call opening category. What are the greeting and branding phrases that we're looking for from my agents, and how often are they saying them? We can look at sales skills. One of the sales skills we've trained our agents is identifying customer needs and qualifying the business. Is this the right kind of customer? Are we selling the right kind of product? Have we identified the needs that we can respond to with our product? And how often does our agent use those phrases that clearly do that? When they present the product or the service that they're offering, are they affirming the understanding of the needs they've just discovered? Are they asking the question to make sure they got it right? Are they making the offer that we've designed for that particular customer? Are they overcoming objections? So how often, again, are they using these keywords and phrases that are demonstrating these behaviors? Are they closing the deal? Are they asking for an email address to send confirmation? Are they asking for a referral? Are they thanking the client and telling them they appreciate their business? So again, how often are these phrases occurring, and what impact does that have on our ability to close the deal? So you can develop these very succinct scorecards that convert these conversations into structured data that allows you to measure your agent's performance and the qualitative aspects of that call. We can see a couple of dashboards up on top that show things like average handle time. So certainly we can measure average handle time. We can look at a goal, in this case, of 5 minutes, and we can see that this agent's at 6 minutes and 12 seconds. We could also compare it to the rest of the team. So how is this agent comparing to the goal or comparing to the rest of the team? But the average the average call score on the top right is the really neat one in my perspective, because this is taking all of those, again, qualitative aspects and converting them into a number. So how often is this agent demonstrating the behaviors that we've asked them to demonstrate in a call? In this case, we had a goal of 90%. They should be 90% compliant in using the keywords and phrases we've asked them to use. And in this case, the agent's 38.8%, so well below target. But we could also compare them to how they are performing as a team. So as I said before, all of this data is just additional ammunition that the organization can use to manage the performance of their sales organization in a way that's going to be most effective in addressing the needs of our new consumer who's looking for a very knowledgeable, responsive, and capable agent to respond to them when they're ready to buy in the way that they're ready to buy. And so we can leverage these tools to make sure not only is our agent driving performance, are they exhibiting the behaviors that will determine performance in a repeatable way going forward. So Ann, I will turn it over to you to make some additional comments around CallFinder.
Thank you so much, Shannon. You're absolutely right. Thank you for pointing out today's customers are much savvier, and they're showing us that they're more in control than ever before. And the rules are really changing now for the sales operations that want to succeed in this new environment. So to be more effective and more competitive in this new normal, businesses need to learn to adapt. Like Shannon said, they need to use the new tools available, and they need to start focusing attention on how they're making sales and not just on the straight numbers on their conversion rates. Now, for you who are listening to learn more about how speech analytics can help you get more visibility into the how, those qualitative factors that Shannon addressed in our presentation today, and to help you bring more context to the quantitative metrics that are affecting your top line, you should consider a free assessment with CallFinder. A free assessment with CallFinder will allow you to work with us to assess, to define your needs and goals together. During a free assessment, you'll use your actual call recordings. CallFinder will analyze on your actual data. For example, we'll build out search categories for you that are around those key factors that Shannon was talking about today, for example, such as those factors that are contributing to the sales success for your company. And of course, when we're done, you're going to get an executive report of those findings. To give you a little bit of insight about CallFinder, we've been in the business for over 25 years providing call management solutions for businesses. That includes call routing, advanced call routing, recording, and analyzing calls for clients. When you work with us for an assessment or for a full implementation, you get one-on-one support and training with a specialist to work with you to identify your goals and your needs. And of course, as a cloud-based company, there is no IT involvement, no hardware or software installation with CallFinder, and we work with you to bring you speech analytics in as accessible a way as possible. We make it affordable, flexible, and scalable for you. And of course, our technology is fast and flexible. Now, if any of you want more information after this presentation, I encourage you to reach out to CallFinder or to our guest today, Shannon Gronemeyer from Customer Centered Strategies. Thank you very much, Shannon, for joining us today on this roundtable. And thank you all of you for joining us as well. Have a wonderful day.